Richard Tran from Color Chiropractic. I am so excited to introduce my guest here today. He's actually a guy that I've known for years, probably decades now. Thad Frye is one of my good friends back in the college days, and he's become a really great therapist and even helped me through a couple of different mishaps that I might share with you here. This is kind of one of the first of the series of interviews that we want to tell you guys about in regards to some of our referral partners. That has not only become a good friend, but it's like he's got really great gifts that I think could help people in regards to their health. So, welcome, Thad. Thanks for being
Thank you
here.
so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's exciting to be here with you and to be with you in this way and be able to talk a little bit about the subject matter at hand. So
Okay.
excited.
Cool. All right. Well, we're going to be talking about something called brain spotting. Now, it's a really cool, my understanding is it's more of a mind body therapy, and it's a way of really tuning into the body to help release some of these trapped emotions that might hold some people back. But I don't want to steal Thad's thunder. I kind of
No,
want
it's great.
to I want to hear it from you, Thad, in regards
Sure.
to tell us a little bit about brain spotting and how you came to know it yourself.
Awesome, and I love hearing other people's interpretations because I get sick of hearing my own voice talk about brain spotting. So feel free to jump in at any point and add in how you noticed it working for you. So brain spotting is something that came out of EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's been around for a little over 30 some years. Francine Shapiro discovered that. David Grand is the developer of Brainspotting. He was an EMDR therapist. He was a trainer. He wrote a book on it, and he stumbled upon it while he was doing EMDR and noticed that a fixed eye position, meaning instead of going between two bilateral, is what they do with the EMDR, he was going across this person's field of vision. It was actually a professional skater, and he was going across her field of vision and noticed an eye wobble. And he said it felt like something grabbed his hand and made him stay in that position. So we're talking about what a brain spot really is a fixed eye position, meaning we're going to stay in this one position while you are noticing any activation where you're feeling something in your body. So we have them notice the activation in their body. We have them find a fixed eye position that allows them access to their limbic brain so they can process stuck emotions and feelings in their body.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool, very fascinating how it works, but some things kind of come up in my mind, even as I'm treating clients from what you
Yes.
said. It's like, sometimes people are just overly stressed or they're strained, and it might be that there's something that they're holding in their body. Like sometimes I'm kind of feeling from what you're saying, it's like, oh, I just feel like this pit in my stomach,
Yes.
that could be something that they're internally feeling. But then,
Yep.
and maybe I should start noticing more of those types of things. Where is it being held? When you're stressed,
Yes.
where do you feel it in your body? But maybe on another level, because they're maybe not in tune with what you see from the outside perspective, you might see that when they're talking about certain types of things, maybe they're looking in
Sure.
a certain direction or something like that. I mean, are those like different signs that you look for?
Absolutely. So you touched on one of the kind of three beginning anyway ways of looking for brain spots. Again, fixed eye positions. One is to have, like we already talked about, one internally that you're going across their field of vision. They're noticing that feeling in the pit of their stomach, and they say, "Ooh, stop there! There's something there." Or even sometimes like, oh, I can actually breathe there for some reason, and we can explore that. That's called a
Mm.
resource. The other one is reflex. I go across their field of vision. I notice a bunch of blinks, big swallows, head movements. I stop. What you were talking about is beautiful. I'm always looking at, especially if they've never done brain spotting. Most people now that I work with have either heard about it or had family members or friends that have had really good results, and so they're at least open to it. But when I was first starting out, I would be talking to you and say, all right, Richard, tell me about what brought you today. What are you working on? And they would start talking. And oftentimes I would notice they have what's called a gaze spot, Gaze, a gaze spot, where we can be online and you'd be talking and, we're going to look different ways to retrieve information in our brains. It's very normal. We're not going to stare each other down the whole time. That's just not socially couth. But there are often times where people will start looking down into their left or up into their right or wherever, and they just keep on going up there. That's what we call the gaze spot. So if I saw that of you, I would say, all right, so as I'm noticing you talk about that, you don't have to keep talking. Or sometimes people can just go internal, but see if you can just rest your eyes. It's not about staring something down. It's not actually about the object itself. It's about allowing access to our felt sense in our body. So as you're talking about that, I noticed you were looking up into your left. Do you mind putting your eyes up there and just seeing what you notice? That feeling you were talking about in your chest, just be with that and notice that. If you want to keep talking, please do. But if not, just see where that takes you. And that's a very natural way that people can enter into that limbic brain and somatic work of brain spotting.
That's so cool. You're giving me all sorts of different questions. I think we could talk for an hour or so, but it's like, on the one hand, I know your background that when you were in school was with, with more like grief counseling, right?
Yes.
And now it's like, morphed into what you're doing now with brain spotting. Do you kind of integrate the two?
For sure. It's where I kind of cut my teeth in brain spotting. So I worked in hospice for almost 20 years. I worked directly with patients as they declined in health and passed. But most of the time I was working with family members for 13 months after their loved one died, in groups, individually, families. But most of it was individual work with adults. And so when I first did my training in brain spotting and was skeptical, but had some big somatics, some big body-based things that happened during that I felt were really relieving. Like my anxiety dropped. I was in my body different. And so I really was like, well, I'm going to see where this goes. And luckily, after I did the second training, I had a boss at the time that was like, yeah, I don't know enough about it, but I'd go for it. So I would actually do 1.5 hour long sessions with people and really dive into the work. And what I would hear over and over again is obviously that it didn't take grief away, and grief is the most natural, normal part of a human condition. So it's not to make that like all better, because we can't, right? But it is around making some of the symptoms, how we are thinking about ourselves in relationship to that person passing away, self-image, attachment. If it was a sudden passing, that last image of them or the last time they talked, that's minimized. Again, it's not because it takes it away. These bad things happened or difficult things happened. But now they can be a memory where it's not as charged. We're not feeling it in our bodies as much. The emotion around it isn't a 10 out of 10. It's more like, of course, I miss my loved one, but now I can really be with the memory of them. I can think about them. I can talk about them. I can engage
I totally hear that. I mean, in our practice, we do mind-body therapies that involve chiropractic as well, too.
Yes,
and
of course.
One of the big concepts is about how you can't forget something, but you can forgive it, right?
I love it.
And what we want to do is really come to this state of neutrality within people, and where they're not being so reactive, that maybe their stomach calms down because they're not thinking about, they can still think about that stress, but not feel the pain that's associated with that, either in their mind or in their body. And it's just such a beautiful thing to see someone unfold like that.
I love that, and I'll add to it. I often talk to people about how quickly our limbic brain and our body react to things, right? We are mammals. We take in sights, sounds, smells all the time, and we're looking for safety. So that hypervigilance, right? So we're always doing that. And here I am in a relatively safe neighborhood in a relatively safe, right? So again, I might not go, oh, I'm not thinking that way, but my body is. I'm in awareness, and we're blocking out things that are patterns that we're used to and that we can block out. But if anything is similar to something that has caused us pain or anguish or anxiety in the past, our senses are telling us quicker than our cognitive brain is to be aware. So sometimes we can be like, I feel anxious, but I have no idea why.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here talking to Richard, and we're friends. I feel okay. It might be the way that the sunlight is coming into the room. That was an anniversary of a loved one's passing that happened. It could be a smell that's in the room. It could be any number of things that's heightening that piece. And so I want to say that just to say how much, because our limbic brains in our bodies tend to process faster, try to notice things faster, we all think we're cognitive, like we're thinkers. And of course we are. That's what makes us human beings. But the thinking brain is the last to know. And then it makes up stories based on who I am, how I am. And so if we can obviously use somatic modalities like Brainspotting, if we can do work like chiropractic to get us back online, and start listening to ourselves. And I know that might sound funny to some people, but it can be as simple as doing a body scan for 5 minutes in the morning and going, oh, I never noticed that I've always held my shoulders in a certain way.
Yeah.
And my left shoulder is feeling that. Or, yeah, I guess I do have a little bit of anxiety in my stomach. And sometimes that's great just to know what our baseline is and not have to solve it, right? We might talk to you, we might talk to a person like me, we might talk to another provider and say, I don't know the answer, but I'm just interested. What might this be about, right? And it's not about getting solved, but just getting more inquisitive about what our bodies and our midbrains are trying to communicate with us.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, good deal. I think we're covering certain bases here already too.
Yeah, great.
You said you took an hour and a half before. I mean, is that how long it usually takes now?
No, I mean, and so I took an hour and a half because I could, and just the way that I'd been there for 10 years, I was a good therapist. I did my job. But I knew that if I could have more time for people it's usually they're riding waves, meaning they're going to feel that intensity. And then sometimes people would be like, oh, I think I'm done. And it's 5 minutes after we started. But really, it's just because they're on this part of the wave of their whatever they're feeling emotionally, sometimes cognitively, and often somatically. So if we can process, not always longer is better, but often it is, if you can allow somebody that time, they are continuing to process. So it wasn't always an hour and a half. Obviously, some clients didn't have that time, or I didn't have that time. But if I could, I would, because I could see bigger changes quicker, because you're right, I was used to, and still am used to often, a 50-minute model. And that's not because it's always the best for a client. It is because some people want to be able to build their insurance. Some people, an hour taking more than that time away from their work or family or anything is too much. But I also work with athletes and college athletes and professional athletes, and their schedules can be very intense during in season and a little more fluid outside of season. So I'll do a thing like what I call an intensive, where I've had people fly into Colorado to see me here, or we've done it online. I should say I do most of my brain spotting online, and it works beautifully. But I'll do like a 3 or 4 hour session with them and really work through a lot of stuff. So again, the norm is more of that 50-minute model, just because that is the medical model. But if I have my druthers, I'm open to longer sessions as well.
I think the beauty of it here too is, as I'm thinking about it, just to share it with the audience here, my personal injuries that I had in 2022 as a result of having a bike accident actually reconnected me with Thad and with the therapies that he integrated. Well, one of the things that happened was that, I did shatter certain vertebra in my spine, but my shoulder was really uptight. It was so uptight, and I was so upset that the doctors were not giving that the attention, because I just felt so much tension there. Well, dad ends up taking me through a brain spotting session, and we're doing it online just like this. He has me look in certain parts of the room, and I just had that fixed eye position, and I don't know what came over me, but I just suddenly started being drawn to tears.
Yes.
Almost like I was acknowledging my body for the idea of this tensity and what the pain was that was being went through. Took a huge breath, felt so much better afterwards. But then one of the things in this context that I appreciated was that you didn't just say, "Hey, let's just go to the next session." You said, "Hey, do these exercises in between. Notice
Yes.
these types of things." So there's also a kind of a self-care component to it, isn't there?
There can be a continuation of care, right? I mean, I always tell my clients I want to eventually work myself out of a job. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
both true of the sense that I want you to be able to go on and utilize the tools, because when I'm with a client, I'm with them again for 50 minutes or even 3 hours, once a week, once a month, whatever it is. And there's so much time and so much more listening, right? I love brain spotting, but like we talked about, if you can bring in meditation, or if you can bring in mindfulness walks, or you can bring in just noticing, you don't have to sit there in a lotus position. And because I don't have a lot of time to do my own stuff, but as I'm walking out and walking the dog, I'll slow down and just notice, okay, where's my breathing at? Oh, I'm breathing at the
Mm-hmm.
top of my lungs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm in a thought loop about like things I need to do. And then I try to talk to myself. Sometimes I need to stay in there or write something on my phone so I don't forget it. But most of the time I can just allow myself to go, I don't need to be there right now. I could, right. So again, I love the modality, and it helps people become more aware of themselves and notice that, like you said, here we have this big injury, and yes, so the doctors and the nurses are going to look at the area that is most impacted and
Yeah,
could have the most
totally.
impact on
Mm-hmm.
your physical health going forward. Totally makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But things also got harmed and also got neglected and also got traumatized.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that's that listening to the body. You found that fixed eye position. I didn't tell you how to feel or where to feel, or I didn't even lead
Mm-hmm.
you that you might have an emotional feeling connected to that.
Mm-hmm.
You just allowed yourself to let your body speak in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And what came up was having emotional reaction, which is totally understandable and
Mm-hmm.
great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, we had I had a list of questions to ask you, but I did
Sure.
want to keep these things pointed, and it's
Sure.
definitely something maybe we need to have you on again. I mean, this will be
Be great.
really cool to just be able to kind of reconnect with you in this way, talk about these concepts. But how did people find out about either a qualified brain spot therapist, or even about you? Because I know that I'm
Sure.
speaking from Washington, Bellingham. You're
Yep.
speaking from Colorado.
Yeah.
And this is going on YouTube, so anybody can be able to see this. I mean,
Sure. Sure.
so
Sure.
tell us a little bit about some resources, ways to connect with you.
Absolutely. So I'll start local and then build out from there. So I have two parts of my job. I'm a psychotherapist and work with people through things like grief, anxiety, PTSD. So my information can be found at my name, thadfrycounseling.com. And that'll give you some information about brain spotting, some videos. I've done some podcasts. So if you're interested in it and want to hear a little bit more, that might be a good way to do it. I also, like you talked about, touched on a little bit, I work with adult athletes. So I work with college athletes, professional athletes, sometimes weekend warriors. So people don't have to be at that level. But in that, I have a separate website called Performance Brain Spotting. So performancebrainspotting.com. I also work with musicians and writers and whatnot, working through blocks or trying to tap into their creativity. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
good way. And people can reach out to me, and I'd be happy to do a little bit of research and try to help them find somebody. I think that's a really important part of my job. I'm also on the board, a nonprofit board, a volunteer position for the Rocky Mountain Brain Spotting Institute. So you can just put in RMBI Colorado, it'll pop up. We have a wonderful directory. It has definitely plenty of Colorado people, but it has has people all across the United States. So you can plug in where you are, and you can most likely find a provider, especially now with teletherapy. If they're in California and you're in Northern California and they're in Southern California, if you're okay working online, then you'd be able to find anybody in California that does my type of work. And then the largest directory is just easy, brainspotting.com.
Mm-hmm.
And so then there you have practitioners all across the United States and all across the world. So that would be another way. So again, contact me, be happy to help you out, or RMBI, or Rocky Mountain Brainspotting Institute, or brainspotting.com. All would help you out.
Nice. That has been such a pleasure to be able to reconnect with you and just talking about these things. I know I'll be seeing you pretty soon, just in person. I'll be able to talk about some other things, but I love it when we can connect on this level, both clinically and for the different clients and people that would be able to check these things out. Again, Thad Frye is one of our referral partners, part of, the mind-body section of the practice that we do. But I know that this is really going to go out and really impact a lot of people that really need some care with that. So, Thad, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And I'll just end by saying, anybody that's interested in it, just have some curiosity around it and do a little bit of research. So again, thanks so much for having me.